The Galactic Council chamber had seen thousands of species walk through its doors. Some were towering insectoids, clicking their mandibles in rhythm as they demanded new trade routes. Others were serpentine, their voices like silken whispers, forever weaving politics into every word. And then there were the Elders, ancient civilizations whose fleets had spanned the stars before humanity even tamed fire. They believed themselves eternal. They believed their order unshakable, and for a time, perhaps it was. When humanity was first discovered, the Council had laughed. A death world species, they called them. Savage apes clinging to a toxic rock. Their emissaries spoke, with false courtesy, praising Earth's courage while drafting laws that bound human colonies to endless taxation and tribute. Humans were granted seats in the Council chamber, yes, but not as equals, merely as the latest addition to a long list of lesser races who were permitted to bask in the supposed benevolence of galactic civilization, and humanity endured. They endured the ridicule. They endured the endless restrictions on their colonies. They endured the lies, the theft, the deliberate sabotage of their industries. When pirates, funded in secret by rival species, raided human trade routes, the Council offered condolences but no fleets. When billions starved on Mars after a Council blockade crippled supply chains, the Council called it unfortunate but necessary regulation. Through it all, the humans did not rise. They clenched their teeth. They rebuilt. They learned. And the Council mistook patience for weakness. It happened at the colony of Halcyon, a lush world on the far rim. It had been a jewel of humanity's expansion, a thriving settlement of millions. But one night, fire rained from the skies. Pirate fleets, though their markings were scraped away, their ships bore the unmistakable designs of a Council member state, descended on the world. Cities burned. Families fled into the forests, only to be hunted down. No distinction was made between soldier or child, between factory worker or farmer. By dawn, Halcyon was ash. The Council convened in emergency session. Outrage was voiced, apologies issued, promises made to investigate thoroughly. But humans in the chamber sat silent, their faces unreadable. Ambassador Marcus Hale rose, his suit a plain black, his eyes cold. He did not shout. He did not slam his fist on the table like so many others had done before him. He simply said, "Enough." Then, he and the human delegation walked out of the chamber. They never returned. The Council did not understand. They believed the humans would protest, file complaints, send envoys to bargain for compensation. That was the way of things. That was the way it had always been. But then, reports began to arrive. The first came from the Veyrock system. Patrol fleets went dark. Days later, merchant vessels limped into Council space, speaking of vast human armadas unlike anything seen before. Ships built not for patrol or defense, but for war. Black steel leviathans armed with rail cannons and energy lances that ripped apart star cruisers in seconds. The survivors described formations moving with terrifying precision, fleets advancing like clockwork across the void. The Council dismissed it as rumor. Then came Iridia, then Varn, then the border systems of 3 different empires. All fell, silent within weeks. At last, the truth became undeniable. Humanity had not been idly submitting to the Council's leash. They had been preparing. Deep in their homeworld, in the shadows of ruined cities from wars long past, they had forged their fleets on barren moons and lifeless asteroids. They had built shipyards hidden from Council eyes, and in the crucible of Earth's endless wars, they had trained their soldiers, their strategists, their generals. The galaxy had mistaken silence for submission. But humanity's silence had been the silence before the storm. Now the storm had come. Council chambers, once filled with the smug chatter of empires, were now drowned in panic. Desperate envoys pleaded for negotiations, only to find human ambassadors gone, their embassies abandoned. Fleets were scrambled, but they were met with annihilation. Human ships tore through them with brutal efficiency, every strike calculated, every maneuver precise. There were no wasted shots, no hesitation. Entire empires began to crumble. Border worlds that had mocked humans for their barbaric ways now sent desperate pleas for mercy. None were answered, and still the humans advanced. It was then that the Council began to realize the scope of their mistake. They had believed humanity primitive, their technology decades behind. But humans were masters of adaptation. Every blockade, every restriction, every embargo the Council had ever imposed had only forced them to innovate faster, to survive without resources, to fight with less and achieve more. And now those centuries of struggle marched across the stars in steel and fire. From the balcony of the Council chamber, Elder Veylan, one of the oldest members of the Galactic Order, watched the endless debates collapse into chaos. He remembered faintly the day humanity was admitted. He had laughed then, certain these apes would be tamed like all the others. Now, as he stared at the reports flashing across the chamber, entire fleets gone, planets occupied, trade, roots shattered, he understood. They were never tame, he whispered. The chamber fell silent. For in that moment, every council member realized the same truth. Humanity had not entered war to negotiate. They had not entered war to reclaim their colonies or demand reparations. They had entered war to end the system that had shackled them, and nothing would stop them. For the first time in millennia, the Council, the great order that had ruled the galaxy with an iron hand, trembled. Because in their arrogance, they had awoken something they could no longer control. Humanity was marching into war, and this time the galaxy would endure them, or be erased. The Galactic Council was a hall of words, not weapons. Its domed chamber was carved from crystal mined from the heart of a collapsed star, shimmering with colors meant to inspire awe and humility. Species from every corner of the galaxy filled. Its tiers, scaled, furred, feathered, chitin-clad, each speaking in the language of politics, promises wrapped in lies, threats veiled as negotiations. War, in their eyes, was a relic of savagery. The Council existed to prevent such chaos, until humanity arrived. From the very beginning, the humans were an anomaly. They were younger than most, new to the stars, carrying the scars of a violent world. But instead of bowing to the Council's hierarchy, they simply endured. They accepted insults in silence, tolerated exploitation without protest, and sat quietly in the back of the chamber as ancient empires sneered. The Council believed their silence was submission. They were wrong. Day everything changed began like any other session. Delegates bickered over trade routes, tariffs, and border disputes. Then the doors opened, and the human delegation entered. No guards, no entourage, just Ambassador Elias Rourke, dressed in a plain dark suit carrying a data pad. He did not sit. He walked to the center, placed the pad on the grand table, and activated it. The chamber fell silent. Images projected into the air, human colonies in ruins. Halcyon burning. Families fleeing as alien warships strafed cities. Children frozen in terror before the fire. The images rotated, frame after frame, undeniable, unfiltered. No propaganda, just truth. Gasps echoed from the tiers. Murmurs spread like wildfire. But Rourke did not speak until the last image faded. His voice, when it came, was steady, controlled, cold. You called it an accident. We call it murder. He looked around the chamber, his gaze sweeping across empires that had laughed at his people. For years, we listened. We endured your Insults, your chains, your pirates wearing borrowed banners. We asked for peace. We were denied. We asked for justice. We were mocked. We asked for protection. You gave us graves." He paused. No one dared to interrupt. There will be no more requests. Then he turned, walked out, and left the chamber in silence. His delegation followed. The council erupted into chaos, but there was no resolution. Some demanded investigations. Others demanded the humans return to speak again. But the humans did not return. Their embassy was shuttered. Their diplomats gone. And then, one by one, the stars began to burn. At first, it was whispers. Patrol fleets vanishing along human borders. Outposts reporting massive energy signatures before going silent. Refugees, speaking of enormous black warships that appeared from nowhere, striking with surgical precision before vanishing again. The council dismissed it as rumor until the first major fleet fell. The Velcron Armada, 80 ships strong, vanished in a single night. Survivors spoke of human warships unlike anything in the council's archives. They did not fight like anyone else. They moved as one, a single organism, every maneuver coordinated, every strike calculated. Where the Council's fleets postured and intimidated, humanity's fleets executed. They did not broadcast demands. They did not declare war. They simply advanced. By the time the Council admitted the truth, it was too late. The humans had not built defensive ships to guard their colonies. They had built weapons of judgment, battle cruisers the size of cities, forged from alloys unknown to the Council, bristling with kinetic cannons and energy lances. Smaller ships moved like predators, fast and merciless. And everywhere human soldiers landed, silent, armored, disciplined. They did not loot. They did not boast. They simply secured, dismantled, and moved on. A wave of terror swept the galaxy. The Council sent envoys. None returned. They sent fleets. None survived. Humanity left no room for negotiation, no ultimatums, no declarations of conquest. Just the march. World after world fell. Not to occupation, but to erasure of authority. Council garrisons were dismantled, their banners torn down. Entire planetary governments dissolved overnight as human boots marched through their streets. The Council convened in desperation. In the chamber, once filled with arrogance, there was only fear. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding immediate surrender, others calling for total war. But no one could agree. For the first time in living memory, the Council was paralyzed. And still, the humans advanced. What terrified the galaxy most was not the destruction. It was the silence. Humans did not broadcast threats or demand tribute. They did not gloat over victories. They said nothing at all. Every advance was wordless, every victory without proclamation. The silence became heavier than any battle, an unspoken judgment hanging over the stars. In hushed whispers, species asked one another the same question. What do the humans want? But there was no answer. In truth, the humans wanted nothing the Council could give. They were not fighting for trade, or territory, or prestige. They were fighting for justice, on a scale the galaxy had never seen. And so the march continued. One by one, the great empires of the Council faltered. Their fleets were scattered, their pride broken. The Kalari Dominion, which had once sneered at humanity as apes who play at civilization, saw its capital blockaded in 3 days. The Zathar Collective, whose pirates had hunted human colonies for sport, watched as their entire navy was dismantled system by system. There was no negotiation, no compromise, only silence, and the steady rhythm of human boots across alien soil. In the Council chamber, Elder Zarthan, an ancient being whose species had survived countless wars, sat in stunned disbelief. He had once mocked the humans openly, dismissing them as children with fire. Now he stared at the reports flashing across the chamber walls. Fleets destroyed, systems lost, empires shattered. "They are not marching to war," he whispered. "They are marching to judgment." The chamber quieted at his words. For in their hearts, every delegate knew it was true. Humanity had endured for decades, waiting, watching, suffering in silence. Now, at last, their silence had broken, not with words, but with fire, and the galaxy understood too late. When humanity marched, they did not stop. The Galactic Council had always believed itself eternal. For centuries, it had governed the stars with the arrogance of age, its members ancient civilizations whose fleets had sailed the void while younger species still scraped fire from stone. To them, every rising race was predictable, ambitious, naive, and ultimately obedient. They might resist at first, but eventually the Council's laws, treaties, and sanctions bent them into place. And when humanity was discovered, the Council saw only another pawn. The humans were a death-world species, forged in storms and fire, their planet a crucible of violence. They should not have survived long enough to reach the stars, but they did. And when they did, the Council extended its hand, not as equals, but as masters. "You will prosper," they promised, "if you obey." Humanity did not fight. Outwardly, they complied. They signed the treaties, paid the tariffs, accepted the restrictions on trade and weapons development. They sat in the council chamber, silent, listening as other empires mocked their inexperience. The council mistook this silence for obedience. But humans were not obeying. They were preparing. The spark came at Eridan IV. A convoy of human freighters protected under council charter was annihilated by raiders. The attack was no accident. The raiders flew ships marked with council designs. But when humanity demanded justice, the council dismissed it as a regrettable incident. No fleets were dispatched, no reparations offered, just silence and a quiet reminder that humans should know their place. What the council did not understand was that those words ignited something in humanity that had been waiting all along. For the first time in their history, every nation of Earth, every scattered colony, every faction and fleet spoke with one voice. The decision was unanimous. The message was simple: enough. The council expected angry words. Instead, it got movement. The first human fleets rose from hidden shipyards on barren moons. The council thought they were small, defensive groups at best. But then they multiplied. And multiplied again, until entire armadas filled the void. Their hulls were black as night, their engines burning like the wrath of old gods. And on each prow was painted a single sigil: Earth's mark of unity. The galaxy did not understand at first. They had seen wars before, squabbles over borders, rival empires clashing over resources. But what humanity unleashed was not war as the council knew it. It was something else. It was reckoning. The first strike fell on the raiders' stronghold. Not a raid, not a reprisal, an extermination. The fortress world burned in hours, its fleets reduced to wreckage, its leaders executed before their armies. Humanity did not broadcast demands. They did not parley. They simply erased the enemy. The galaxy watched in silence, unsettled, but still arrogant. A single retaliation, they told themselves. The humans will stop, but the humans did not stop. They moved outward, system by system, their fleets cutting through council-controlled space like a scalpel through flesh. Every empire that had raised a hand against them found its borders collapsing. Armadas sent to stop them were shredded in hours. Worlds that had once mocked them fell silent as human boots marched across their capitals. It was not conquest. It was punishment. The council convened in desperation. In the great chamber, voices once filled with pride now trembled with fear. Some demanded negotiation. Others demanded the extermination of humanity before it was too late. but it was already too late. Reports flooded in faster than the Council could respond. Fleet losses, planetary defenses crushed, empires shattered. At last, the Council realized the truth. Humanity had been preparing for this for decades. Every embargo, every restriction, every blockade imposed on them had forced them to innovate. Cut off from resources, they had learned to make more with less. Denied advanced technology, they had created their own, hardened by necessity and perfected by struggle. Every insult, every betrayal had been recorded, remembered, and now answered. The galaxy had shaped them into its own destroyer. In the chamber, Elder Zareth, who had lived long enough to see empires rise and fall, spoke what all feared to admit. "They are not waging war," he said, his voice heavy. "They are delivering judgment." Silence fell. For once, no one argued, because outside, among the stars, human fleets continued their relentless march. On the world of Valar Prime, once thought impregnable, citizens woke to see the skies filled with human warships. Their rulers pleaded for mercy, offering surrender. The humans said nothing. They landed, dismantled the ruling council, and walked away, leaving the planet in stunned silence. No occupation, no tribute demanded, just judgment, delivered, and departure. That was what terrified the galaxy most. Humanity did not seek dominion. They did not demand obedience. They destroyed only those who had wronged them, then moved on, leaving ashes where tyranny had once stood. Their silence was worse than threats. It was the silence of inevitability. Empires began to collapse from within, their citizens rioting, their rulers panicking. Some tried to ally with humanity, but their envoys found only closed doors. Others begged for truce, but their words vanished into the void. Humanity did not negotiate. Humanity did not explain. They marched, and the march was endless. From Earth's first step into the stars, the Council had believed them weak. Now, as the galaxy trembled, one truth became undeniable. Humanity was not weak. They had simply been waiting. Waiting until the chains were too heavy. Waiting until the pain was too much. Waiting until the time for silence was over. That time had come. In the council chamber, as reports of yet another empire's collapse scrolled across the walls, a single delegate whispered what all feared, but none would admit. The age of the council is over, and in the silence that followed, the truth was clear. The galaxy would never again underestimate the Deathworlders. Humanity had risen from the ashes of oppression, united in a single purpose, unstoppable in their march. They had not come to debate. They had not come to conquer. They had come to reckon, and the stars themselves would remember their judgment.